G'day and welcome back for another Space Engineers tutorial. In the previous two tutorials we built this base platform and we built this mining ship, we've got our basic assembler, refinery, and one of the next things that I often find myself wanting to be able to do if I want to be able to get access to all the different resources that I might want to collect is to go to space, because there are some things you can only get in the asteroids or only find on things like the moon. So if we're going to be traveling that far away, we're going to be wanting to take a respawn point with us. Because if we hop out of our ship and we fly and go smack into an asteroid, we don't want to be ending up back here. We'd much rather be on our ship. Now we could take our survival kit with us, but then what happens if we smack our ship into an asteroid? We have to start all over. Or reload. Highly recommend new players just reload a backup save. Learn quickly, don't learn through pain. It's supposed to be fun. So just roll back. No one needs to know. But if we want to build another survival kit or even a medical room so that we can get our power and health back more quickly when we go to recharge, well, we're going to need silver. We can, from our basic assembler, produce the required medical components, and we can see here that they require 6.67 kilograms of silver per medical component. We go into our inventory view, we can see, if we go to our refinery, that we cannot refine silver ore in our basic refinery. It just will not let it in. That's because the basic refinery can only refine stone, iron, nickel, silicon, cobalt, and magnesium. I knew there was one more. So we're going to need a proper refinery to do that. If we take a look at this block, it's a big one, and it's also quite expensive. 1,200 steel plate in total, not to mention the other components. It's also 2 by 2 by 4 large grid blocks. So it's 5 by 5 by 10 meters. This is big. You can see that it's got a conveyor port on each of these sides, top, bottom, and each side. It does not have anything on the front. And on the back, it's got these new kind of ports that we haven't seen before. If we go to a little oblique angle like this, you can see that the conveyor port on the left is substantially larger than these yellow ports on the right. These yellow ports on the right, that the back of the refinery is covered in, are upgrade module slots. And we're going to be trying to take advantage of those because they allow us to do things like increase our yield per unit of ore that we refine. They can increase the speed of this refinery, or they can make this refinery use less power to do the same work. But we need to build one of these things first. And as noted, quite expensive, and also quite a lot of stuff to carry. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I like to use that can make building a refinery like this much, much easier. So we need a big refinery. Let's place it down. I'm going to place it down at the back of our platform here. The reason I'm doing this is not a gameplay one, but just a demonstration one. It will make it easier for me to show off different bits of it later. So place it here. It's going to need to be connected to our conveyor system so that our ores can get moved into it. So we're going to need to build a conveyor line over to it. I know that the backside of this has a conveyor port here and a conveyor port here. So I'm going to connect up this one to our cargo container over here. You can see if I bring out the model again, that's the way I've got the refinery arranged, and I can see that conveyor port. So I'm going to build a conveyor line going from the top of this cargo container. I'm going to stop just before I get there. I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to put a curved conveyor tube there. I'm going to leave this section in the middle free because that's going to make our life a bit easier in a moment. So I'll build this up, add the pieces to my build planner, grab them from the cargo container, weld it up. Now we're going to go to a free hotbar slot, open up our blocks menu, and search for welder. And there is a block welder that we can build. So we're going to add that to our hotbar. We're going to grab the parts for it. For the build planner shortcuts, I'll be including my build planner tutorial in this series coming up just after this video, as that'll give you a lot of the shortcuts that you need to make this work. The welder has 3 conveyor ports. 1, 2, 3. In a little C shape like that. The welder end, the end that actually does the welding, is to my left right now. We want to make sure that that end is sitting flush against our refinery because we want this welder block to do the welding for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this up so that the conveyor ports are aligned properly for us. You can see they're going to line up nicely with this conveyor line. We're going to stick it here with the welding tips sitting nicely against our refinery. Then we weld this up. Now that welder was able to be carried in my inventory on standard settings, so we can always pick this up and move it later, but that's really nice because this refinery, its parts are not. To weld this up by hand, I'd be running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, getting all the parts. Or I can check my build planner, make sure it's clear, right click on this, walk over to my cargo container, press shift middle mouse to make sure everything gets put into production, walk back up here to my welder, go to its control panel and turn it on. And it is going to start welding this refinery for us. As soon as those components are made by our basic assembler, they are going to continue to go into our refinery. You can see 2 plates being added at a time. I'm not doing anything. This is all my welder. And we can see, if we go into our production menu on our grid here, whether we've actually got enough materials to make all this stuff. We need 6,900 kilos of iron. How much iron do we have? Yes, we have enough. We also need to have 60 nickel, 20 cobalt, and 1 silicon, which we may not have the nickel. Oh no, we've got it as well. So we've got all the things. Now we can just wait for our basic assembler to do all this building. We can, because we're not here needing to do any of the work for the refinery, we could take out our mining ship, go collect some more resources. We could continue building other things around the base while we're waiting for that to happen. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just actually going to wait for this to happen and not jump any further ahead. By building the refinery with our grid-based welder here, I've not actually unlocked the things in the progression tree that are behind it. If we go to refinery, we can see that if this was built, I should be able to build speed modules, yield modules, power efficiency modules, reactors, but these are all still grayed out. The easiest fix for this is let's go and turn off our welder, grind this down below the functional line, and weld it back up again. In building refinery, you have unlocked new blocks. So now we can take a look at these upgrade modules. And I'm going to jump over to a creative mode save so we can have a look at what each one does. I've set myself up here with 4 different refineries. One with no upgrade modules, one with a speed upgrade module, one with a yield upgrade module, and one with a power efficiency upgrade module, so that we can have a look at what differences they have. When we look at upgrade modules, you can see that they have 2 upgrade module connection ports on the back of all of them. They can cover 2 of the 8 slots if you align them directly over the refinery. You can choose for aesthetic reasons if you have multiple refineries next to each other. I haven't really thought of any other reason you would do this, but aesthetics I've definitely done this for. If you have a whole bunch of refineries in a line, you can choose to have these modules covering 2 of them and then filling in the gaps in some sort of haphazard fashion. So for example, a refinery there, and then you kind of do this thing and have it slightly offset, and then you can do the verticals to fill in the gaps and things like that to give it a bit more of an interesting look on the back. But otherwise, if you only cover 1 slot, you only get half the effect. So let's take a look at what the effects are. Our first refinery here with nothing on it has a max required power input of 560 kilowatts. It refines at 130% speed, has a yield rate of 100%, and a power efficiency of 100%. If we put 1,000 kilograms of iron ore in here, it takes a little while to process, but it'll get through it. It'll get through it eventually. If you're refining a lot, that little wait that I did there is going to be a lot longer, and we got 700 kilograms of iron out of that 1,000 kilos of iron ore. We go to our next refinery, which has a speed module on it. We can have a look in our control panel and see that we have a max required input of now double the power at 1.12 megawatts, an almost double increase in speed to 230%, no change to yield or power efficiency. So if we now transfer another 1,000 kilograms of ore in, this should process almost twice as quickly, which means while I'm talking, this will probably almost get finished. And almost timed it right. Still with the same outcome though, 700 kilograms of iron ingots. So what about the yield module? We have a look at the yield module. It has the same power input as the standard refinery, same refine speed, same power efficiency, but the yield rate's 119%. So if we now transfer 1,000 iron ore across, we should get more than 700 kilograms of iron. It takes just as long as the standard refinery, and it's produced 832. So in many cases where you've got an ore that you're finding difficult to find in adequate quantities, yield modules are going to be the way to go. Particularly as, if you want to make something go faster, you can build another refinery. But maybe it takes you too long to go and get more of that ore because maybe it's up in an asteroid somewhere way away from your base. Now what about power efficiency? So power efficiency has made no change to refine speed or yield rate, but has taken our 560 kilowatts down to 374. So if you're in a position where you don't have access to much power, say you're on a moon, for example, so you don't have wind power, and you're running on solar power and it's just fallen night and you want to preserve that power, you can use power efficiency modules on your refineries to make them much, much cheaper to run. They'll produce exactly the same amount of material as your standard refinery, but with much less power input, which can be quite handy early on. Then you can replace them with something else later. You can mix and match whatever type of modules you like on the backs of your refineries. For example, here we've got a power efficiency, a speed, and 2 yields. That's taken us to a bit under 1.5 times as much power usage, but with a yield rate of 140% and doing it almost twice as fast. So pick the combo that makes the most sense for your particular situation and change them as you like. None of the components in here will be destroyed if you grind them down. Even the power efficiency module that has power cells, the power cells only get destroyed if you grind down a battery. Engines, power efficiency modules, and other grids that have power cells in them will give them back when you grind them down. So let's get back to survival mode and then we can pick what we're going to put on the back of our refinery. Let's think about the position we're in right now. We have 5 wind turbines, we have 1 battery. We go to our battery, we can see that it's fully recharged in 3 hours, so we're not short of power even though our refinery is currently running. Perhaps if we were also running an assembler, we might run into troubles, but our current input is 1.84 megawatts, so we've still got 1 megawatt clear. This means the power efficiency modules, probably not what we need. We could, however, run speed modules. But speed modules just mean I have to fly my mining ship more to get more resources. If I want to fly my mining ship less, which might also then save me some power, I'm going to want to get yield modules. So let's have a look. Speed module, yield module, power efficiency module. What do I need to be able to make these? For a speed module, we need fairly basic stuff: motors, computers, steel plates, small steel tubes, and construction components. For power efficiency modules, we need similar, but with power cells. For yield modules, we need superconductor components alongside those other basic materials. And if we have a look at our current production methods, being our basic assembler, it can't make these. So let's upgrade. Let's get a proper assembler. Now, where would I want to put my proper assembler? Let's have a look at the block. The proper assembler is a 2x1x1 block with cargo connection ports on both ends and 2 on each of the long sides. 1 there and 1 there. But it also has 8 upgrade module slots that are all along the longer sides, even where those conveyor ports are. As you can see, these conveyor ports are different to the ones on the end. They've got the small yellow square on the inside of them, indicating they are both conveyor port and upgrade module slot. So what we want to do when we're placing down this assembler is keep a block free around all sides of that long axis, because that means we can put upgrade modules all the way around. And if we have a look at our current base, there are a few options we have for that. We could take out a couple of these conveyor tubes and put the assembler in here, which would give us the conveyor line joining the 2 just fine because you can pass through the assembler, and then we'd have space all around, or we can place it off the back of our cargo container here. That's what I'm going to choose. Make sure we have nothing in our build planner. Then with the assembler selected, let's middle mouse over our cargo container, grab what we can, tell it to build the rest with shift middle mouse, and then we can place it, making sure the long axis is out so that we've got room for all of those upgrade modules. Place that down. We should be able to weld this one by hand because it doesn't take a huge amount of material, but if you were wanting to, you could move this welder by writing this out, grabbing some steel plate out, placing the welder down first. Definitely place it down first, otherwise this section of conveyor line is going to break. Place it down there, start welding it up, grind out the other one. Now that the conveyor line's stuck, finish welding this up. There we go. And we can turn this on, and it'll weld up our assembler just like it did the refinery. We can then use the bits from the conveyor tube we took out to rebuild this one here. Make sure the refinery is again connected to the assembler. As you can see, as each component is made by the basic assembler, it's going straight into this new assembler, so it'll be built soonish. One thing to note about the assembler is that it's approximately double the components, plus some metal grids, of a basic assembler. So if you're in a particular rush to get to the proper assembler, you can just build half as many, particularly with the computers, needing 160 for the big one. Build up just 80 of them, then grind out your basic assembler and use its computers in your new one. I think I'm already past that point, but let's cancel this and use at least what we've got left. So the assembler has another 60 computers needed. Before we grind down our assembler, let's check its cargo. Our basic assembler has a bit of silicon, a bit of iron, and some steel plate. If we clear all this out and move it to the cargo container, it means when we grind down the assembler, nothing will drop. But if we don't, and we grind this down, you'll get one of these little drop containers. It will have in it the bits that were in the assembler beforehand. Now, we've picked up those computers, and being careful not to get cooked by this welder because, ow, it hurts. Let's turn that off to make this safe. No industrial accidents, thank you. We can now weld those computers into our assembler, and by building assembler we have unlocked more new blocks. Now because this welder is also in the way of our assembler's upgrade modules, I'm going to get rid of it and replace it with a conveyor line, because the welder was only intended to be there as a temporary thing. We now look at our production window. We can see that we've got a few extra things that are possible to build. Things like reactor components, thruster components, superconductor components, gravity components, more tools, more ammo, a whole bunch of extra things, and one really nice extra feature. We have a look across here, we can actually see whole blocks. So say for example, I want to make my assembler faster. So I want to add a speed module. I'm going to search for module, and I can select the speed module, and it will order all of the components needed for that speed module so that it'll be nice and easy to collect later. This is kind of handy if you want to build a lot of something. For example, if I'm about to build some small grid ship, I'll go to small blocks, I'll go to thruster, and I know which type of thruster I'm going to build a lot of, so I'll order those up ahead of time. That means that while I'm out there collecting some more resources that I know I need for this, the assembler can be working and building all of those components for me, effectively making the build a bit quicker and me not have to wait around so long, which is nice. So let's have a look at our assembler. Now, assemblers can only take 2 of the 3 types of modules. Yield modules will not work on assemblers. They don't have any effect whatsoever. So we've got just speed or power efficiency. As mentioned before, we're not really struggling for power, so let's go for speed. And because I know I've ordered up the parts, I should just be able to grab all of the bits straight out. I can slap this on top. I'm going to do this in yellow. So we put our speed module on top, and if we have a look at our assembler beforehand, the assembler has a production speed and power efficiency of 100%. So when we add this speed module covering 2 of the upgrade slots, it's going to take our speed to 200%, which is quite nice. So if I cover this with speed modules, I've effectively got 5 assemblers working. This will work as quick as 5 individual assemblers. And that's fantastic because every speed module is going to add effectively another assembler. But what if you've already got that and you still want it to go faster? Well, that's where this comes in, cooperative mode. To demonstrate cooperative mode, I'm going to jump across to creative again. What we have here is a cargo container with some resources in it and 3 separate assemblers. I've deliberately not put upgrade modules on them because it aids the demonstration, because it keeps things slow enough that we can see the differences as they happen. So if we go to our cargo container and go to our production window, we can see on the left here there is the assembler, but there's also assembler 2 and assembler 3. If I were to order 100 steel plate, this assembler will produce 100, and these 2 will do nothing. So what we can do is select these two in the drop-down list and select Enable Cooperative Mode. It's now going to take from this first assembler some of the queue. If I order up another 100, you're going to see that this is going to drop, while this one is going to increase until all of those plates have been made. Assembler 3 is still idle, so let's get it to help as well and enable cooperative mode on it. Now we have both of the other assemblers stealing part of the queue. So let's start again now that we're fresh with 100 steel plate. Quickly drops down to 60 as assembler 2 and 3 have taken some out of the queue. And now we have all of the plate produced. If I have a look at my inventory, we ordered up 300 steel plate. Let's see. There we go. Across the 3 assemblers, we have gotten 300 steel plate. So that's how you can make them work together. I would strongly recommend that the assembler you use to actually produce stuff, to add things to the queue of, is the one that's at the top of this drop-down list when you access a regular cargo container. If I access an assembler directly and go to the production window, it will put me on that assembler in the production menu. So we started on assembler 2 going through that one. We started on the assembler going on that one, and we should go to assembler 3 when I go to this one. This also happens when you access things through your survival kit or a basic assembler. It will drop you into the production menu of that block you accessed first. But if you go via a cargo container or a control panel on a different block, it will go to the top assembler. And that's the one you want to use. You do not set it to cooperative mode because it's not being cooperative. The other ones are being cooperative. It's being the boss. So you leave it off and you set cooperative on the others. If you were, for example, building something gigantic and you wanted to build a lot of it, you could set enable repeat mode. Then put a single steel plate in and it's just going to keep going. Now, because we've got 2 other assemblers doing cooperative, they're going to try and steal part of that order. And with this only being a single plate, it's going to get a bit confused. This will actually be quicker if I put a few more in this order. Because the others take 10 to 15 off the order each time, this way they're able to do that. This one's not on repeat, but because the main assembler is, the boss is, it's just going to keep stealing and this is going to keep getting refreshed. In this way you can make steel plate until you run out of iron. Those are the advantages of using repeat and cooperative mode. The other thing you'll notice in this production window is that there is a disassembling option. Just like how you can grind down a block and get all its components back, batteries notwithstanding, you can also get all of the basic materials back from components that you've made. So for example, these steel plate, if I want to get all their materials back, I can go to the disassembling option, select components, and put 100 in, and I will now get the iron ingots back from those steel plate at perfect efficiency. So everything I put in, I will get back. This can be useful if you've accidentally made too much of something because you left repeat mode on, and you actually need a little bit to make up some other component that you've run out of in order to get your broken rover fixed to be able to go and collect some more. Totally not drawing from personal experience there. Another thing I wanted to demonstrate while we're here in creative mode is a little problem you can run into with your assembler. If we have a look at our inventory of our assembler here, you can see that it's got 100 kilos of iron in it. If we go to our production window, when we mouse over a component that requires iron, you can see that we've got 100 kilos available. If we go back to our inventory, move that out to the cargo container, and now fill our assembler with gravel, which can happen to you because when a refinery refines ores or stone, and then the refinery's own inventory is full, it will push that material out to other connected inventories, and sometimes, if you've got enough of it, that can end up in your assembler and filling it up. That's a problem because now if I go to my assembler and I say want to make some steel plate, I can order them up, but it can't make them. And the reason it can't make them is because its intake inventory is full. It's got no room to put the iron it needs. It needs you to go in there and manually move this gravel out. This could be any ingot, it's just the most common one will be gravel. And because gravel is mostly a waste product, when we want to clear this out, my personal preferred method is just go like this and drop it on the floor. We can also set up ejector systems for our base that throw out gravel, the same way we set up ejector systems for our mining ship that throw out stone. You could also, if you wanted to, go into your mining ship. So we've actually got the base down here. Grab our sorter and add gravel to this list. Add that there. You can see that there was a little bit of gravel in this inventory and it's dropped it on the ground. So I can dump it from the mining ship. Keep in mind, if you do this and you then decide you want to make a reactor, which is the one thing that requires gravel, you're not going to have any gravel left and you're going to have to go mine some stone. And make sure you've turned off the ejector systems before you try and bring that stone home to be refined. That's one of the most common reasons for the assembler to get filled up and to stop producing. So it's always worthwhile checking if you find that you aren't making components when you expected it. Make sure you check whether your assembler is full and clear it out if it is. So let's go back to survival and keep on building. I've got an assembler. I've got a refinery. But I want to get yield modules for our refinery. So what I need to do is go out and find some gold. Let's have a look at my GPS list from previously. And I have some that I found before. So let's go grab that with our mining ship so we can refine some gold and produce some superconductor components. Remembering to take my battery off recharge, and then off I go. In the time it's taken me to mine this gold and build the assembler, the refinery has probably completely refined all the silver I'd previously collected. That means I can build a medical bay, or I can build some fancy tools. So let's take a look at that. We go to our assembler, and we go to the tools menu. We can see that there are 4 different tiers of each tool. We've got the basic, we've got the enhanced, proficient, and elite. Each of them requiring slightly different materials. The enhanced we could have built already because the basic assembler could make them, but the proficient required silver, which we now have, so we can make those now. So let's upgrade our tools. So we're going to get a proficient grinder, proficient welder, and a proficient drill. Now this assembler should pull the silver it needs from the inventory of the refinery, which currently has a little bit of silver in it. Then, once these are made, let's make the parts for yield modules. We're going to want 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also press Control to do 10 times, Shift to do 100, and Control Shift to do 1,000. So how much gold do we need? We need 53 kilograms of gold for this, for the 80 superconductor components that need to be made. So we're starting to collect that gold, but it's going to be a bit slow. All right, so let's get our tools out. So we're going to grab these tools, bring them into our inventory, double click. We're going to put these ones back in. Now, if we look at our hotbar, we can see that our tools are grayed out. We go to G, right click on these to clear them. Go to character tools. We can then add our tools back on. And now we can use our better tools. When you deposit your tools into the inventory of the assembler, we can then switch over to disassembling and we can disassemble those tools and get some resources back from them. It's not much, but it's nice to just kind of get them out of the way. Make sure you switch back to assembling so that stuff that you're making can still get made. So we'll wait for this production to complete all of the bits for our yield modules. But let's start building them. And we'll grab 4, we'll grab yield module, make sure our build planner is clear, middle mouse, grab what we can. Let's start placing these on the back of the refinery. If we can get these built while it's refining that gold, we're going to get more gold from the work we did. Orientation of the modules does not matter, so I'm going to play around with it and have it a bit mixed on the back here. And because I've now placed down all 3, I'm now going to clear my build planner, and then right click on this one, right click on this one, right click on this one, and then all 3 are in there. That means I can just go to my inventory, which doesn't have to be the cargo down there. It can be here on the refinery. And grab all the bits that have already been made, as I will pretty much be just waiting for those superconductor components. Yield modules also give a small speed boost, because the speed of a refinery is based on the amount of ore that goes in, not the amount of ingots that go out. So 100 kilograms of ore still goes in with that speed, but because the yield is higher, we're getting 80 kilos of ingots out instead of 70 in that same time frame. So you're getting the ingots faster, but the ore is not being processed any faster. So it's sort of a speed boost in a way. At least if the speed you're looking for is the rate at which you're going to get the ingots. There we go, we have a fully recovered refinery with yield modules. Let's have a look at what that tells us we're going to get. 200%. We're going to get double the amount of ingots from each bit of ore. Let's have a look at one example of that. If I go and grab some iron from over here. So if we grab each of these yield modules and turn them off, We can now have a look at our refinery again, and you'll see that its yield rate is 100%. If I put in 100 kilograms of ore, so I'm going to shift click on that to put 100 in, you can see that we've gotten 70 kilograms of iron. So that's 70%. So if we were going to double the yield of iron, we should get 140 kilos, right? So let's turn all those yield modules back on and put another 100 kilograms of iron ore in. Now with it being double yield, you would expect 140 kilos of ingots. And that is what you get. There is no conservation of mass. Our 100 kilograms of iron ore is giving us 140 kilograms of iron ingots. It's magic. Space magic. So yield modules, they're pretty good. Something you might have noticed by this point is that refilling your power from the survival kit is quite slow. So what we might want to do is maybe build a medical room, as that's also going to be our respawn point. We can also remove this basic refinery as we no longer need it. So let's move these bits out and grind it down, as we're going to use this spot for our medical room. Alt middle mouse to drop off the stuff I was carrying into the cargo. And let's remove this conveyor tube as well. To try and make our base a bit more interesting, I'm going to extend it out a little bit this way. And for visual purposes only, I'm going to give it some support. Again, leaving this space around the assembler clear so that we can put our upgrade modules in there later. Okay, so let's have a look at what we need for a medical room. I'm going to add both the medical room and the DLC version to my list here, just because there are some differences that might matter between them. So our standard medical room here has a conveyor port on the top and a conveyor port on the bottom. Our DLC one has two on the sides here, none on top or bottom. So the conveyoring for this one can be a little bit more straightforward depending on how you like to lay out your conveyoring. We'll start with the non-DLC one. There are two places that you want to have access to on your medical room. There's this screen that you can see here, and there's this stand-up area here, because the stand-up area is where you're going to change your suit, and the screen is where you're going to recharge. The reason we want to conveyor this up is so that we can refill our oxygen and our hydrogen from this once we have oxygen and hydrogen supplies on our grid that we're building, whether that's our big base or a ship or whatever. So let's order this up. Medical order. 100 kilograms of silver. Do I have enough? Let's check. Yep, we got 172, so we're just fine. I know that I want to leave this block row clear here for our assembler. So what I'm going to do is place my medical room over here. And then hopefully it won't be too long before all the bits are built. There we go. Medical room constructed. And now you can see just how much faster this is at recharging your suit. If I recharge now, it feels almost instantaneous compared to the survival kit. So we can get our power quickly, but we still want our oxygen and hydrogen from this thing, so we're going to need to have a source of that on our conveyor network that's hooked up to our medical room. At the moment, my ice source has been the O2H2 gen down here on my survival kit, so I've been filling up my bottle from here using the little bit of ice that we collected way back at the start. But if I want a little bit more, we're probably going to want something on our base. So let's build an O2H2 gen. Our O2H2 generator has conveyor ports, two of them on the long sides and then one on each end. So what I can do here is place this arranged like so, and it'll be connected to the end of the assembler, but also give me a conveyor port just here. Which is going to be handy when I want to link that conveyor port to this one on the roof. Saves me a little bit of conveyor building. And also, I kind of like the look of things being a bit more tightly packed sometimes. There we go, O2H2 generator built. By building that, I've unlocked the ability for us to make things like oxygen and hydrogen tanks. So if we look at tank, we can see now we've got access to building these, which is going to be useful in the next tutorial where we're going to look at building a ship to take us to space. So let's hook this up. There we go, with those conveyors built, we'll have our O2H2 gen connected up. Just like before, let's right click on the remaining ones, add them to our build planner, shift middle mouse to manufacture the remaining bits. There we go, it's hooked up. Now we just need some ice so I can take my mining ship out and go collect some. With ice in the O2H2 generator, as you can see here, if we search ice, you can see there's some there. When I go over to the medical room, my oxygen and hydrogen will fill if they are partially emptied. This is also true of a survival kit if it is piped up and connected to a source of oxygen or hydrogen. So we press F and hold that. You can see hydrogen and power filled almost instantaneously. There's one last thing I want to do at this medical room, and it's something I've been itching to do ever since I noticed that my glove was a little bit orange. And that is fix my suit. Depending on your situation, you may have access to some of these different options, but mainly it'll be for changing your suit color. Ah, that feels better. Back in gray. So we've done a decent amount of upgrades on our base today. We've gone from a survival kit to a medical room, basic assembler and basic refinery to proper assembler and proper refinery, as well as getting upgrade modules on both. With us having this medical room, we could now take this survival kit and put it on a ship that's going to take us way, way, way up to space. And that means we can respawn if something goes wrong up there. And that is what we're going to do next time. So there's all that and plenty more to come, and I will see you then.